So we got Hollywood Lance Caparosi over here making the Detroit Pistons latest video.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty sweet. Did completely unexpected. Did not know. Yeah, sounded great. It was cool. Got me hyped.
Not once, but twice he made it in there.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought, okay, if it was kind of cool to be in the intro. That was cool. And I was thinking, all right, cool, that's it. And I can't even say claim to fame because there was no credit given. Nobody knows that it's me. Listen to this podcast. Yeah, name wasn't on there. They didn't even tag our YouTube channel, which would have been really cool. Yeah, that would have been cool, but it was still cool though. It was awesome. It was a great video, and yeah, I would have never found out if it wasn't for a friend that sent me it all. That was pretty sweet. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna downplay it though. I haven't made it yet.
I mean, we're not nationally. We're not ESPN. We're not The Athletic. We're just out of all the Pistons podcasts, they decided to use our audio. So I think that's pretty cool.
That was pretty sweet. And I think it's up to like 16,000 views. So that was the part that I was kind of real excited about. I was talking about it last night when me and my fiance were out for dinner. We were talking. I just thought that was the cool thing, like having that many people listen to something you've said and talk about. And that's, I don't know, that's just kind of cool. Like, 16,000 people hear your voice talking about something you love, and it happens to be the Detroit Pistons. And it was sweet. Like the clips that they even added to the second part of what I said about Jalen Duren, that was pretty cool because, sometimes you just say things and you're like, I don't even know, and it all fit. Yeah. It was pretty cool. So I was excited, and yeah, it was cool to hear. Cool video too.
You never know who's listening. You really don't. You never know. Like we have 32 people on right now. We can't see who's watching. I mean, obviously we have people that work for the Detroit Pistons that listen to this podcast and tune in. So that is really cool. I'm really happy for you, by the way, man. Like when I heard that, I was just like, let's go, man.
Yeah, like I told you in the text, man, I would not have, none of this would be possible without you, man. Like you do a great job when it comes to doing everything for the Pistons Talk. Like, I mean, you built the brand. Like I've always said, you built the brand. I just hitched my wagon to it, and we're pretty unstoppable, man. Championship caliber. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Mikey said we're like Shaq and Kobe.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I wish we'd get like a Pistons duo, but yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mikey was like, I think he was born after like 2004, so he never got to see like any of that stuff. I always forget he's really young.
It's all good. Appreciate it, Mikey. But let's get into this, man. We're talking about some brothers, the Thompson twins. They were the first, I believe they were the first twins drafted in the top 5, which is already pretty cool, but it's a budding rivalry, not only just between them, but also between the Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets. I feel like, how we're saying like there's no real rivalry between the Rockets and the Pistons. I feel like there should be, because twin brothers are on the teams. They, obviously they love each other, but when they're between the lines, they dislike each other. And, if they're acknowledging it kind of as a rivalry, even though neither of them came out and said it in the interview, I think we should acknowledge it as a rivalry as well. So if you're a Pistons fan and you're rooting for the Rockets, can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. They're our enemy. They're enemy number 1.
It's wild. I got a follow, and usually like I'll check who follows me on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I read this guy's bio. So he lives in Houston, but he's a Pistons and a Rockets fan. I was like, no. You can't do both.
Yeah, you can't
choose one.
You have to choose one. You have to choose. Yeah, I got followed by another Houston Rockets fan as well. That's number 3 for me. And I don't think I've ever tweeted anything out positively about the Rockets other than Steve Francis highlights. Because you can't hate on Steve Francis. The franchise, he was incredible. I loved this article that you posted by USA Today, by the way, because when I was reading through all of their answers, you kind of get this idea that Asar, I think he's the more competitive of the two twins. He seems to be all about basketball and, winning and just getting after his brother. He was even doing it in the interview between these two. He was getting after his brother, Amin. And that was pretty cool, man. It's kind of, I don't even know. It's just, he's the more competitive one. That's all I can really say about it. And when they were talking about who's going to dunk on who first, it's going to be Asar. There's no way Amen gets it first, right? There's no way.
So, did I put the full quote in our preparation sheet?
You did.
I'd like to read it for everyone listening, because obviously, like, when we do have the audio, people probably don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know if you can read it if you want to.
Yeah, I'll read it right here. It's different. I just don't like his team, really. I don't like him, really. I don't like any team other than the Detroit Pistons. That was the quote that you posted in the prep sheet.
Okay.
And that's great. It really is, because even though he is rooting for his brother and he loves his brother, they're enemies on the floor, man. And he's getting after it. That's what it means.
Yeah, every time I read an Asar Thompson article, I think the last one I read was like him and his brother with their dream board. Like, the more I read about the Thompson twins, the more I love about them. Like, even James Edwards' article that he had last week talking about, like, Asar Thompson literally goes to, like, open parks to work out. And, like, people are like, dude, like, you're an NBA basketball player. What are you doing? Like, you want to come work out. You can, like, work at the practice facility. Like, he's just a hooper to me. I hate saying that word, but, like, he's the definition of just a basketball junkie. Like, he watches film, he studies. He said he wants to get into broadcasting after his NBA career is over. Maybe he could take George Blaha's spot, but I hope George isn't broadcasting that much longer, because that would just be torture. Not only for him, but I think Pistons fans in general. But I do love George, by the way. Shout out. But yeah, man, like, I just love this kid's confidence. I love that he's saying, I don't like my brother. I don't like the Houston Rockets, which I think a lot of Pistons fans actually love to hear. To your point, saying who's going to, get dunked on first. It means, like, yeah, I'm going to dunk on you first. He's like, you're never going to dunk on me. You're trash. Like, basically. Like, I love that. Even this summer, saying he was going to beat the Houston Rockets by 30 in the summer league. Like, that kid does not lack confidence. And I think it's that chippiness in his edge. That's what I love about him personally. Like, I love that he's not all buddy, because there's just so many NBA players today. Like, oh, let's swap jerseys. Oh, let's follow each other on social media. Like, none of that with him. Like, he's just one of those guys that likes basketball, only likes his teammates, and he's willing to get better. So, I mean, when I read this, man, I just started laughing.
There's one other quote in here, too, that makes me – I know that Asar is the killer of the two, because he says, yeah, I stole his shoes. I got the PlayStation 5. I'm pretty alpha in this situation. He took Amin's shoes. He took the PlayStation between the two. Now Amin has to go and get that stuff for himself. Again, you love your brother, but you are also establishing dominance. And you are saying, look, not only am I going to destroy you on the basketball floor, but in our personal life, I will get after it. And there is nothing you can do about it. That is why I love Asar, amongst the other highlights and everything else he does on the basketball court. But being the killer of the two, yeah, that's why I love Asar.
It's just like the way he carries himself too. Like him and Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, like, they're all cut from the same cloth. Like, I was thinking about this earlier, of like how Troy, I know this is like completely off topic, but Troy Weaver always says, I'm trying to get the person right. And, like, I tried to think about it, like, what does he mean by that? But, like, when I hear Asar talk, when I hear Cade talk, when I hear Jaden Ivey talk, even Jalen Duren, like, I get what he's saying. He's just looking for guys that want to play basketball, want to get better, no off the court distractions, and, just they're just pure basketball enthusiasts. And I think that's what what he means. Like, I'm trying to get that person right. We're trying to get good people here. And I think that's what Asar is to me.
Dude, he is too. When there was something else I was reading about him, they were talking about their OTE experience. That the moment these two guys were done with the basketball game, they were immediately watching film. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then there was that interview they did. I forget who it was with, but they were mentioning basketball players that their first name started with A and going down the list. Like, I mean, it seems kind of silly when you're talking about it, but it just shows that they have like a real love for the game. When you know even fringe NBA players' names and what team they played for and what their role is or whatever, and you're able just to drop them like rapid fire in some type of game like that, it really shows that they're just basketball junkies. And I will say, before the rivalry begins, Detroit and Houston, they each got a good one with the 4th and 5th pick.
They did. And I really hope that when they do play, it's on ESPN. I really hope. Like I want all the smoke. I want ESPN to just make this into like a fun rivalry. Like, because I don't really think we've had a rivalry probably since like what, the Pacers, the Nets.
It's been a while.
Maybe you could say the 76ers, but it seems like we're always kicking their ass. But AI used to give us the business. But like we haven't really had like a fun rivalry in quite a long time.
So that I got to ask this question: do you think rivalries go from that they last forever? Or do you think they just belong in eras? Like I remember seeing a tweet a few months back where they were saying, "Who are the Pistons' rivals?" And I think it was like you were saying, the Pacers. Then I think the Bulls were thrown in there, and then I think the Lakers were in there as well. My thing is, I feel like rivalries can only last for eras because I don't feel like a lot of them extend decades and decades and decades. So I would say that the Pistons right now currently have no rivalries other than the Houston Rockets. And, but back when we were teenagers watching the Pistons, it was very much the Indiana Pacers and New Jersey Nets who were the Pistons rivalries for sure, I believed at that time. And maybe even the Lakers too, just because they had that, the finals appearance between each other. And I'd even maybe throw in the Miami Heat too, before they got the Heatles, all three of those guys playing in Miami together. But what about you? Do you think rivalries go on for decades and decades and decades, or do you think they belong just in eras?
I think the only rivalry that has still gone on to this day is the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. And it's not even a rivalry between teams. It's just a rivalry between Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
It seems like I'll watch an Isaiah Thomas interview and he'll mention the Dream Team, or someone ask him about The Last Dance. Like, he's still not over it, dude. Like, and I absolutely love it. I love the pettiness. Like, bring it on. Like, I hope they're like 90 years old saying, "I don't like you."
I mean, I feel like with Isaiah, it definitely will always be, because he also is from Chicago, and he was one of the best high school players to play, I think, to come out of Chicago. I mean, he's an NBA Hall of Famer. So, yeah, it will probably always be there for them. But I just feel like rivalries belong in eras. And I don't know, that's the way I think about it, though, because I don't know. I don't feel like there's bad blood between like the Pacers fans and Pistons fans, or when those two teams meet. But there was during the Ron Artest and the Jermaine O'Neal era with Reggie Miller. So,
you know what? I think you're going to rekindle the Pacers-Pistons rivalry because the Pacers had a phenomenal offseason. Tyrese Halliburton versus Cade Cunningham. Now they have Obi Toppin, Benedict Mathurin versus Jaden Ivey. Like, there could be a rivalry brewing in the future with the Pacers and Pistons because both are incredibly young teams. Both have great coaches and Rick Carlisle and Monty Williams. Like, I could totally see like a playoff battles between the Pacers and the Pistons for years to come.
Are you going to root for Bruce Brown now that he's an Indiana Pacer, or is that love gone?
Oh, hell no. It's been gone.
Yeah, it's gone for me too. I can't root for Bruce Brown anymore. Once he's gone let's just start the rivalry now. Once he leaves the Pacers, I will root for Bruce Brown. But right now, you're an enemy to the Pistons fans now, Bruce Brown. We're not cheering for you. Good that you got your ring in Denver, but you ain't winning shit in Indiana. Sorry, man.
Oh, man, yeah. I thought it was like with rivalries, like Celtics, and the Pistons, it's not really a rivalry anymore. It seems like Celtics will win a game, we'll win a game, but like we haven't seen them in the playoffs since like what, like 07?
I don't even know the last time we played.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think that was our last playoff win was against the Celtics in 2008.
But even then, it was so long ago. So maybe they'll be our new rivals. But right now, it's Houston. And we'll just throw Pacers in there now, too. Let's just say we just started it. We'll say the Pacers are our enemies as well. They're our rivals. But we can move on to news.
Let's get it.
All right. So the Detroit Pistons have signed Stanley Umude to a non-guaranteed training camp deal. This comes from Keith Smith. You watched him a lot for the Motor City Cruise. This guy's like a hustle player, right? Like pretty athletic, but likes to get kind of like a nose for the ball, dive on the ground, get you an extra possession type of guy.
What's really unique about Amude, and I wish Mikey was talking because or not talking. I wish he was watching because he'd probably agree with me. He came off the bench with that Cruise team, which, in my opinion, he could have been a starter, and he was kind of a spark plug off the bench for the Cruise this year. What you need to know about Amude is he plays the forward position. He's got a nice shot from the outside, and he does have some defensive potential. Do I see him making the team? Personally, I don't, but I think he's just a body in training camp that the Pistons obviously signed. I think they can carry up to 21 players until the start of the season, but good to see him get a training camp deal from the Pistons, and I'm sure he's going to hustle his ass off to try to make the team, but we just have so much depth at kind of like that forward position. I just can't really see him getting playing time like over a Livers or an Asar Thompson or anything like that. Like he's a nice player, but he's going to have to do like a whole lot if he does want to try to make the team.
Yeah, he played one game for the Pistons last year and averaged 2 points and 100% from the free throw line. But yeah, I don't know much about him. I went to college at South Dakota and Arkansas. You know, I mean, that's cool. You know, but I mean, I don't know much about Stanley Umude. I'll have to watch maybe some Motor City Cruise games because I have a feeling he'll be brought back. He'll be somewhere in Detroit. It just won't be with the Pistons, but good for him to get a training camp deal. Maybe he does prove something. Maybe we don't know what we're talking about, and he just proves something in training camp where he just becomes a force. Occasionally that happens from some of these guys, but very unlikely.
Yeah, he's a nice player. I will say that. He was a spark plug for the Cruise last year. Like him and Kyler Edwards, those two were just hitting threes coming off the bench, and it was just like a lethal 1-2 punch. And you know, he does have some defensive upside. Like if you need wing depth, and let's say you just have like a injury, like a Livers gets injured or Sarr gets injured. Like I'm not saying it's going to happen. Just hypothetically, he could be a guy that maybe you sign to a cheap contract because something happened in training camp. But other than that, he's just going to be a body. I feel like a lot of the training camp deals that the Pistons have given out, I really can't see them making the team.
Yeah, because it was Xavier Simpson. He's not going to make the team. The guard depth is just too good. And I mean, he's not even on a Killian Hayes level, you know, for basketball. I mean, probably a better offensive player, but just does not have the size to be a full-time point guard in the NBA. And then I think Towson, he got a training camp deal. He's a guy I could see making the team, though. He has an interesting skill set. You know, 6'7", 6'8", can play the 3, primarily played the 4, I believe, at Princeton, but good, solid passer, strong player, a little bit of an outside shot, kind of cerebral. That's a guy that you could see making the roster. But again, it's even a long shot for him. But I'm just glad that the Pistons are in a position where they're not seriously considering bringing these guys on, and they're not going to get big minutes with the Detroit Pistons this year, because if they were, it would be another long season. I'm just glad that they're healthy and these guys are coming in and getting a couple paychecks and, you know, getting to say they played for the Pistons for an off season.
Yeah. Like most of these guys that are on like these Exhibit 10 non-guaranteed deals, they're not going to play a whole lot. Like you might see them in a preseason game or getting sent down to the G League, but that's all they'll probably be. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we have a lot of depth and there's going to be a lot of competition this training camp. I'll just say that.
I will say though, it's kind of cool that Troy Weaver continues to bring in familiar names during the offseason to let these guys get run with the main core of players, because I feel like it'd be easy just to continue to bring in new names, but bringing someone that's familiar with the organization and things are ran and familiar with like the Motor City Cruise, if that's the team they're playing for, whatever. It seems, I feel like that's really beneficial and kind of an underrated move by Troy Weaver right there. And it keeps his guys getting paid. I think that's pretty cool too.
Are you talking about like bringing Buddy Boeheim back?
Kind of. And well, Stanley, he was brought in last year. So was Roden, and then Xavier Simpson. I mean, he's not new to the Pistons either. Like, he's been here for, I think this is his second offseason getting a training camp deal. I could be wrong about that, but I just think that's pretty cool that Troy Weaver does that. Just brings some familiarity with these guys and, keeps them getting paid in the offseason because, they're making a little bit of money.
And also, it's completely off topic. It's kind of G League related, but did you see who the Milwaukee Bucks hired for their head coach for their G League affiliate?
No, I didn't. Who do they hire in?
Beno Udrih.
Really? Oh,
yeah. Okay. Former Piston.
Yeah.
Had that little mid-range.
He was a lefty. He was solid in 2K, one of my favorites. Had a funky haircut along with Aaron Baines. I remember that. The undercut with like the blonde on top pulled back into like not a man bun, a top knot. I believe.
Yeah, it looked like Pidgeotto a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. That's a good one.
Oh, it's funny because like the Crews, they lost their head coach in DJ Parker, but he's going to be an assistant under Beno Udrih. And the Crews still don't have a head coach yet. So it's just like, what's going on, you guys?
Interesting. Vacant spot.
Yeah.
We have one more piece of news. This comes from Mark Stein. He reports the Pistons are telling teams Killian Hayes is available for a trade. I don't think you need to tell anybody because when you sign Monte Morris, you bring back Alec Burks, you get Cade Cunningham healthy. Yeah, the news was already out. We knew Killian Hayes was on the trading block way before Mark Stein. I don't know what Killian Hayes gets you in a trade market. We've talked about this to exhaustion. I hate picking on the kid, man. I really do, but it's just
thing to do. Come on.
I mean, okay, it is, but also I feel bad about it. Like, I asked for forgiveness after the show, but it's Killian Hayes. He's available for a trade. It was funny. I see a lot of people like tagging Mark Cuban after those highlights of Killian. What was it, drilling a 3 or a mid-range jumper to tie the game or put him up by 3 or something like that against the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I almost shared that, but then I'm thinking, what would my reputation be? Like, I've dogged Killian Hayes for months now on this podcast, and I'm sharing positive highlights of him. That's not good.
Yeah, like I'm not really too surprised by this report from Mark Stein. I think the writing was on the wall when we saw the Mavericks initially offer a trade package for Bojan last month and Killian's name was involved. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum. Do you see one more move for the Detroit Pistons? And I think that one more move is to trade Killian Hayes to open up some cap space. Maybe it's a salary dump. Maybe you just match salary with a guy that's making similar money to Killian Hayes to maybe you get more depth at the wing position. I don't know, but I think the writing is kind of on the wall with the Pistons, especially drafting Sasser, because I think Sasser can play either point guard or shooting guard. I think he's just that good of a player. But I'm not really too surprised that the Pistons are telling teams like, hey, if you want to trade for him, he is available.
Yeah, I think there is one more trade, and I think it does involve Killian Hayes, but I just don't know who you trade him to, because I think Dallas is a perfect situation for him because he would be playing off of Luka. I feel like there would be an opportunity for him to grow as a player. And I've said it before. I don't think his calling card is as a point guard in the NBA because there's not enough consistency in his offensive game for him to really do that. But if he could focus on his defense and, focus playing off the ball, and that doesn't mean you have to be a good shooter. We've seen guys make a career out of they're not great consistent shooters, but they get after it defensively. That is something I could see Killian Hayes doing, potentially, is just really trying to get after it defensively on another team while making strong, kind of like how Bruce Brown was before he developed a 3-point shot. I mean, I think he had a little bit more confidence attacking and finishing than Killian Hayes did, but he was not a marksman. He was not a sniper behind the arc, but he made a living getting to the basket. And there was a highlight tape of Cade Cunningham, fan of the show, Cameron. He showed it to me, but there were a lot of plays in that highlight tape of Killian Hayes playing off the ball and making cuts off the corner, coming out from the corner and at the corner three and making a cut to the basket, and Cade would find him. I think Luka could do that. And I think Killian Hayes could find in a role like that. If he is going to be traded, I would love for it to be Dallas, but I just don't want them trading him to Dallas just for nothing. I would want to try to get a guy that could potentially help the Pistons in return.
Yeah, I think he's still young. I think he's 20. I think he just had a birthday. He might be 22 or 23. My only thing is, you traded for Monte Morris. Cade Cunningham's going to be your point guard. We both could agree there.
Yeah.
Unless you're just going to have Killian chilling on ice, unless there's an injury, sure, just have him on the bench. Like, he could get the Saban Lee treatment for all we know. You know, maybe they give him some G League burn and just to get his confidence back up. And, you know, if there's some garbage time or there's a blowout, sure, he'll play. But I think Monte Morris and Cade are going to get the bulk of the minutes at that point guard position.
Oh, yeah, same. I think it's going to be, you know, I mean, I even think they'd play Jaden Ivey at the point guard. I even think they'd give minutes to Alex Burke and maybe even Asar to let him bring the ball up instead of giving minutes to Killian Hayes. Like, I feel like that's how bad it's gotten for Killian Hayes in Detroit, that there's almost, unless he just really develops an offensive game and some consistency where he's knocking down shots, I just don't see how he climbs out of the hole in Detroit, you know, and I think a change of scenery would be best for him. I mean, he could have a resurgence kind of like Chris Dunn did. He had a solid 13 games for the Utah Jazz. I think he was averaging like 13-4 or 11-4 or something like that for Utah over, I want to say the final 13 games of last season. He was another point guard that came into the draft, lottery pick, similar size, a lefty, didn't really have much of an offensive game, but, you know, more of a defensive guard. So maybe Killian Hayes could do that. Who knows?
Yeah, it's I know we talked about NBA analysts last week, and they had probably the most blasphemous Killian Hayes trade. It was like Killian Hayes for Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes. It was like, one, the Lakers wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, if you get Cameron Reddish and Jackson Hayes for Killian Hayes, that's just highway robbery.
And, but if you're Killian, would you even want to go to a team like that where the media, there's going to be so much attention on everything that you do and how you play? It's going to be scrutinized, even if you don't play a ton of minutes. But I mean, if you get out there just for even like 10, 15 minutes, you know, ESPN, and you do something silly, ESPN's going to be talking about you. I don't know if that's a guy that could really handle that kind of attention right now.
Yeah, I think if the Spurs didn't trade for Cameron Payne, that would have been like a good landing spot for him, honestly. But like I said, we could be overreacting. He could be on the team. He could just, you know, be that third string point guard. And if there's an injury, he'll be, you know, readily available for the team to kind of just go into that, have him man that second unit if Monte Morris gets hurt or, God forbid, Cade gets hurt. Knock on wood, he's not getting hurt. But it's not a bad idea to carry 3 point guards. A lot of NBA teams do it in case there is an injury because the NBA season is long. But personally, if I had to bet on it, I would say he's probably traded before the season starts.
But let's just say he's on the roster, though. Do you think he'll be on a short leash, though? Like, he won't be allowed to make too many mistakes before he's pulled and they start looking elsewhere, whether it's Asar, whether it's Alec Burks, or whether it's, you know, Jaden Ivey getting those, you know, those third string point guard minutes or whatever. I mean, obviously Jaden Ivey's going to start, but you're going to try to, you know, split the workload between him and Cade so you don't have to play Killian Hayes. I feel like that's the, or maybe even we get an earlier look at Marcus Sasser playing point guard if Killian Hayes struggles. But I agree with you. I do think there's another trade coming, but it would not surprise me if Killian Hayes is still on this team when the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything crazy. Like, Sadiq Bey got you 5 seconds. Maybe you get a second for Killian.
Well,
maybe.
But are we both in agreement that this is Killian Hayes' final year in Detroit? Unless there's just like a full 180 to his game.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video of him working on his ball handling, and I'm like, that's cool, but I really need you to work on your shooting.
Yeah.
Like, he could be working on his shooting. I don't know. But I think they have enough guard depth. They really do. I mean, drafting Marcus Sasser, to me, that was kind of, I don't want to say it was his replacement because I don't think it was, but they've drafted Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Sasser, traded for Monte Morris. Like, I think the writing was on the wall for a while, and they've given him every opportunity. I mean, he just really hasn't taken that opportunity and developed, I think, fast enough for the organization to say, like, we're going to give you an extension like Stewart's. I think the Pistons, if they could get some kind of draft compensation for him, they would be happy and wish him the best. And I think a lot of Pistons fans would probably do the same thing. I know some Pistons fans, some Piston groups, man, like I don't even, like, I have to remove myself from them because they're so toxic. Some of the stuff they say about him is just absolutely insane.
Oh, occasionally I get tweets from people talking about Killian Hayes, like, look at his numbers. They were comparable to this guy. I'm like, I can't keep having these arguments. I just cannot do it. But I do think the Pistons made a real effort to keep Killian Hayes off the floor with bringing in Monte Morris, drafting Marcus Sasser, making sure Alex Burks was a part of this team for this season. I think they were doing everything they could to basically bury Killian Hayes. And I just don't see him being the Detroit Pistons after this season, man.
Yeah, my hot take is I don't think he's going to be on this team to start the season. I think they make a deal for him. I really do.
Well, let's hope. Fingers crossed. Let's move on to some topics that we have for you guys. Got some fun ones in here, actually. Hoops Hype, they released their top 10 rookie rankings. They had Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. They were both in the top 10. I don't know. I was a little surprised where they were. There's a lot of Pistons fans that actually agreed with Hoops Hype. And they had Jaden Ivey at number 6 behind Paolo Banchero. He was number 1. Jalen Williams, number 2. Walker Kessler was number 3. Benedict Mathurin, number 4. Keegan Murray at number 5. And then they had Jalen Duren at number 8 behind Jaden Ivey and Jabari Smith Jr. of the Houston Rockets. So 2 of our rivals right up there. And then, we got a Sacramento King who we also dislike. So maybe even 3 of our rivals were ahead of our beloved Pistons. Did you agree with this ranking, though? Do you agree with Jaden Ivey being number 6? Or can you make a case for him being higher on this list?
I thought he should have cracked the top 5. I probably would have put Keegan Murray higher and I would switch Jaden Ivey with Benedict Mathurin. Just because I think Ivey, if you look at where he started and where he ended, to me, I thought Ivey this past season was a top 5 rookie in his draft class. As for Duren, I think top 10 is respectable. Obviously, the one center that did crack the top 3, Walker Kessler, I thought he had a good season, but I'm starting to think the hype that he gets, like, I don't want to label him overrated, but dude, he gets a lot of freaking hype.
Who, Walker Kessler?
Yeah, like the hype he's been getting, I was just like, yeah, he's good, but he's not that good.
I gotta pull this up real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at Jalen Williams, and I'm a fan of his game. I do think that if Jalen Williams and Walker Kessler were in a role like Jaden Ivey was last year, they'd be talked about a little bit differently. Because Jaden Ivey, he was not playing on a healthy team. He was playing out of position at point guard. I mean, it was great that he got to learn. I thought that was huge. He developed as a playmaker. That's huge for his game going forward. But he did not have the luxury of playing with Cade Cunningham. He did not have the luxury of playing with Bojan or Alec Burks, for the entirety of the season. Isaiah Stewart was out as well. All of those guys played less than 60 games. So, but Jalen Williams got to play with the healthy Shai, got to play with the healthy Josh Giddey, and a few other people on the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they were taking eyes. He had a great second half. I think the last 20 games of this rookie year, he's averaging over 18 a game. I think Jalen Williams was. I could be wrong about that, but I want to say it was like the last 20 or 25 games he just went on a tear. But he had the luxury of playing with Shai and Josh Giddey, taking eyes off of him defensively, even though he is a huge part of their future going forward. But that's a luxury, and I think you need to acknowledge that. And I think if he was playing in the Jaden Ivey role, like had to do pretty much all of it for the Oklahoma City Thunder, like Jaden Ivey had to do for the Pistons, we'd be talking about him differently. And I feel like the same way with Walker Kessler. He had that luxury of only playing 20 minutes per game. You can look real good in 20 minutes. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. That's not enough time for you to really make mistakes. So it's cool that he made Team USA. He's a phenomenal shot blocker. He's probably going to be, he's honestly like his shot blocking will probably put him in the Defensive Player of the Year candidates for like the next decade. You know what I'm saying? Still has a little bit of room to grow offensively. But again, if you put him in a role where if he is the focus, his season would have went a little differently, I believe. And it's cool that they're both in the top three. I'm with you. I would have had Jaden Ivey a little bit higher because I think he had a phenomenal rookie season. I think he really grew from game one to the final game of the season. And I just feel like it's just being overlooked by a lot of people. Like people don't want to acknowledge the rookie year Jaden Ivey had. And I talked about it before. That's what pisses me off. That's the annoying part, that they just don't want to talk about Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, like when I looked at this list from Hoops Hype, their top 10 rookie list from this past season, I thought Paolo Banchero and Jaden Ivey were the two rookies that had the most responsibility.
Yeah.
Paolo has to be, the number one option, the main option, the guy. He was the first overall pick for a reason. And then Jaden Ivey was kind of just thrown out there, starting next to Cade Cunningham for 12 games and then sharing, backcourt minutes with Corey Joseph, which it's no, slight at Corey Joseph, NBA champion, veteran, but, he didn't really have the luxury, to your point, of, playing with the SGA, playing with the Josh Giddey, playing with the OKC team that had a very good season last year. And Benedict Mathurin, by the way, Benedict Mathurin, he started maybe a couple of games, but mostly he was coming off the bench. He was putting up numbers against number twos, not number ones. Jaden Ivey had to, guard the best point guards and shooting guards every night. And to not have him in the top five, I'm not too mad at it, but I thought he deserved, a top five consideration. That's just my opinion. I'm trying not to be a Piston slappy and drink the Kool-Aid, but the way I'm just kind of talking myself into it, I think he should be a top five in consideration with this list that they did put out.
So here's some stats. Well, here's one stat. So Jalen Williams, he had 21 games where he had less than 10 points as probably the third option on Oklahoma City, maybe even the fourth option. And it's not, and some of these games he wasn't getting a ton of shots, but like we're talking about him like he lit the world on fire offensively. But Jaden Ivey, who was the focus of defenses, only had 5 games where he had less than 10 points. So like I don't know. It just seems like we're overlooking Jaden Ivey because he had, again, a really great rookie year, but we seem to be acknowledging Jalen Williams having a great second half because I don't think he wasn't doing it all year round. Like he had some bad games to start the season, but that part gets overshadowed because you were playing with an all NBA first team player. Again, Jalen Williams had a great rookie year, but in my opinion, I don't think he should be ranked higher than Jaden Ivey. And yeah, that's the fan in me talking. But when I'm looking at the numbers, what Jaden Ivey had to go through his rookie year without playing with, Bojan, Cade, Burks, Isaiah Stewart for a good chunk of the season, he showed up. And I don't think a lot of these other guys that are ranked higher than him could have done it.
Maybe Paolo. That's about it.
Paolo, yeah, but I'm not talking about him.
Yeah, but I do agree with you. I think they all benefited from having good teammates around them. But hey, it's rookie rankings. I still think Jaden Ivey could average 20 points a game. And I know we're probably going to get into that later in the podcast, predicting stats. But that's how highly I think of him. I think he's a really great player.
Same. I wasn't mad about Jalen Duren though, where he was ranked. I felt like he did enough to, be recognized. I'm glad he's getting the respect as being a top 10 rookie from last year. But I feel like if you were to rank him any higher than 8th, you would be talking too much about his potential, as a player going forward. I mean, I can see Duren being much higher on this list in the next couple of seasons, probably even after this next season. But, right now I think 8th is a pretty good spot for him.
Same here. Same here. I think, he had moments where he was in the Kia top 5 this year, but he also had moments where, he struggled a little bit. He's a rookie. He's not going to come out just dominating. No rookie does. I mean, outside of LeBron, really. But I was happy to see 2 Pistons in the top 5, or the top 10, I should say. I do think maybe we'll see a star in a top 5 list.
Oh, dude, 100%, definitely. So I don't know if you remember last week when I said Caden Duren could be like a Penny and Shaq in the Orlando days, like that big guard, and that center duo. Someone else with a huge Twitter account or X account, they actually compared Jalen Duren to Shaquille O'Neal in a way, with like just the way he dunks the ball and how many dunks he gets and how he's always just trying to dunk it down everybody's throats. I thought that was pretty cool. I almost tagged you in that tweet, but decided didn't want to just, didn't want to toot my own horn too much. But let's talk about the greatest defensive list. Kendrick Perkins coming through in the clutch, it seems like, talking about the greatest defenses since 2000. He had the 2014-15 Warriors at number 5, the 01-02 Lakers number 4, the 07-08 Celtics at number 3, the 02-03 Spurs number 2, and then the 03-04 Detroit Basketball Pistons coming in at number 1, and that was pretty cool. Do you think if you were to stack all 5 of these teams together, Detroit's defense would actually be able to hold it up with the rest of these teams? It'd be tough to get a few of these guys.
I do. It's just their defense, once they acquired Rasheed Wallace, was just absolutely insane. I mean, holding teams under 80 points a game during that era was just like, you would see like some games it'd be like 60 points and they had like maybe 80. It's just like that type of defense you'll probably never see in the NBA again. And what they did was just absolutely insane. I remember being a kid, like watching them, I was just like, oh, why does it'd be like halftime. How come they only have 20 points and we have 40? Like, I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't really appreciate the greatness at the time. But as I've gotten older and, rewatched old games, like the type of defense that they played, I think they do deserve to be, the number 1 best defense, since the 2000s, in my opinion.
So some people might laugh when I'm about to share this, but they had only 4 teams scored 100 or more points on them that year. That was the Miami Heat, the Dallas Mavericks, the Boston Celtics, and the Dallas Mavericks again. And then if you look 1 year ahead at the San Antonio Spurs, they had, I don't even know if I can count that many games. Way more than 4. We'll just say that. It's like 15. I'm just looking at it as a rough estimate. But again, it was a slower down era, but even the Spurs, the number 2 team on this list, they had a bunch of teams score over 100 points on them. I'm agreeing with Kendrick Perkins, and man, that defense, though, outside of them just shutting people down, it was how they did it. It was all 5 of those guys in the starting lineup that were just all in sync. And then you throw in a guy like Lindsey Hunter and Mike James later in the season, being that like those 2 pit bulls coming off the leash, just ready to attack you and get after you. That was pretty cool. Then you had big guys like Eldon Campbell and Mehmet Okur, who were just, both getting blocked, both blocking shots night in and night out. That was really cool to see. It was just a great collective effort. Like sometimes you see, 2 great defenders on a team and they're doing their things individually, but rarely do you see a team all working as one unit to hold opponents and suffocating them. That's what you got with the Detroit Pistons, the going to work squad.
Yeah, I was just happy we did get some national love, but since we did get national love, he called Tayshaun Prince Torian Prince, which I kind of like obviously he forgot his name because he said Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace like 3 times.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, Torian Prince. I was like, no, Perk, the Tayshaun Prince, not Torian Prince.
Do you think Kendrick Perkins would actually be able to give you a good enough reason why the Pistons were number 1 on his list?
Probably because he had to play against them a lot.
But I just feel like he was just listing names. I watched that clip, and I mean, I think it was maybe 2 minutes, but I don't know. Maybe someone can correct me, but I don't feel like he gave you a good enough reason why the Detroit Pistons were number 1.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to break down like the analytics of it. That's not like really what ESPN does. But I think for him to have them number 1, I think it was more, maybe it was like, previous relationships with players like Richard Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace. But hey, man, I'm not going to discredit the list. I love that we were number 1. It seems like if we do get ESPN attention, it's not in a positive way. It's usually in a negative way. I love that they were forced to, acknowledge them because we really don't get that type of national love ever.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so. The Spurs had 17. They had 17 teams score over 100 against them. The 07-08 Celtics, they had, I think it's about 16 teams, if I'm counting that right. 16 teams. So that's really impressive, though, by the Pistons to have only 4 opponents go over 100 against them, roughly in the same era. I mean, it's only about a 5-year separation between those 3 teams that are ranked in the top 3. The Pistons did something very special that I don't think you'll ever see again in the history of NBA. Like, even if you were to do it by today's standards, I don't think you'd ever see a team do that, where maybe the 14-15 Warriors, maybe that's why on the list they might have done something, because I think they were holding opponents like 101. I'd have to go back and look and see what, how many teams they scored over 105 against them or something. But the Pistons, yeah, dude, I don't think we'll ever see a defense like that. And it wasn't even just carried by one individual. That's the crazy thing. I mean, yeah, you had Ben Wallace winning multiple Defensive Player of the Years, but it wasn't one of those things where, it was all just based on what he did.
Yeah. I think just the group they had, like Tayshaun Prince, Richard Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and even having guys like Lindsey Hunter and Mike James off your bench. I think that's why he probably had them number 1. And to your point, yeah, you'll never see that again. Not in the modern NBA. You can't even like guard a guy. Like you have bad breath, you're getting called for an offensive foul. Like I get it. You want to have a game that's, more, I guess, appealing to the average or casual fan. But personally, I like the defense. I like letting them play through contact. You can't even like touch a guy now, it seems, without it being a foul.
Yeah, I would like the NBA to make some rule changes to help a defender out. Like, I would have no problem with that whatsoever in the NBA. Even if you gave me like playoff whistles, playoff basketball throughout the regular season, I'd be okay with that as well. That would make a huge difference, in my opinion. Let's talk about this crazy trade, though.
Yeah, this is what everyone is here for right now, because I clickbaited the crap out of this title.
Well, of course you have to. Bleacher Report makes a Zion trade to the Detroit Pistons. Pistons receive Zion Williamson and Kira Lewis, one of my favorites. Pelicans receive Bojan, James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, a 2026 first-round pick, top 3 protected, a 2028 first-round pick. Bleacher Report, they always seem to make Zion mock to the Detroit Pistons. I don't get that. Whether, I don't know if they want to help us out or they're just hoping that, like, he never gets healthy and the Detroit Pistons are just stuck with him. But I am all in on this trade. I think this is it's a win for the Pistons for sure. Like, you're going to get people in the seats. You're going to get eyes watching the Detroit Pistons. And who knows, you might even get a healthy Zion Williamson. I don't think he takes the ball out of Cade's hands. I think him and Cade would just be phenomenal together. I think having Zion being able to play off the ball with a guy like Cade who could find him cutting to the hoop or even throw him lobs or put him in position to be even a more efficient scorer, that would work out tremendously. But what were your thoughts on this trade?
I thought at its surface, it's not a bad trade, but I think what Bleacher Report didn't take into account is those draft picks, 2026 and 2028. So, as you know, the Isaiah Stewart trade with the protections. We technically own our pick, but it's really heavily protected with the Knicks. I think it. I don't even like remember the exact protections. I think it's like top 16 protected or top 18 protected, something wild like that. I'm not entirely sure if you can trade a draft pick that's already owed to another team. So when they said top three protected, I don't even know if this trade is actually even possible personally. But um, I think if I'm a Piston fan and I saw this, I have to give up Wiseman. I have to give up Bogdanovich and Hayes for Zion. It makes sense, but the health scares me. It scares me a lot. When he's on the court, the Pelicans last year were a top three seed in the West. There's no denying that. He's a phenomenal player, but it's the health, it's the off the court issues. That's a distraction. I think if I'm the Pistons, for me, I don't want those distractions, even though the player is, when healthy, a top 10, top 15 player in the league. I think I would probably pass on a trade like this.
Really? You wouldn't want to gamble on him potentially just getting healthy, even with the distractions? Like, I think a healthy Zion is worth it. I mean, we've only seen a healthy Zion one time where he played 61 games in the 2021 season, but he averaged 27 a game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. You know, dude, he's an offensive terror, man. I would definitely take the gamble. Like, you lose a little bit of shooting, but man, if he can stay healthy, that boosts your team to what, top 4 in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, it would, but like here's my thing. I don't want to compare the two, but gives me Blake Griffin vibes, big time. And I'm not saying Zion and Blake Griffin are the same player. I think Blake had way more injuries during his Clipper days than Zion has had with the Pelicans. My thing is they're similar because they both have injury histories. Even if this trade was real, let's just say, hypothetically, like you could take the protections off, whatever. I know Brian Anton said you couldn't even make this trade because the Knicks have protections. He's 100% right. I know there were protections with uh, the draft picks, but like getting back to like the trade at its surface, I think you're giving up a lot. You're giving up a guy that you just traded for in James Wiseman, which who knows what's there. A guy in Killian Hayes, which I feel like everyone watching this probably would be happy that he would be gone. I see very few Killian Hayes fans. There are some in the chat. I don't want to say, but a majority of the fan base just they just don't want him on the team. And then Bojan Bogdanovic, who is arguably your best shooter, arguably one of the better vets that you do have on this team. I would just have a really hard time accepting a trade like this because I don't think he would stay healthy in Detroit. I just don't. With our medical history over the past 10 years, dude, like he would probably maybe play 20 to 30 games at the max. Not to mention, man, like get him on a Coney dog, get him on some Sweetwater wings. Hell no, man. He's gonna be passing out. Like, come on. Like the food down in Detroit, hell no. Like I would pass on it.
Okay, but if you were guaranteed 2 healthy seasons of Zion with a healthy Cade Cunningham, because I mean, I think we all agree Cade's going to stay healthy. But if you got 2 full seasons, no, we'll just say like 70 games in the playoffs with Zion Williamson, you get 2 seasons of that. You want to make that trade if that's what you got?
No, I really wouldn't. I just think that there's so much risk in trading for him, and he's not a bad player. He's really not, but I think a lot of the media, they believe that the Pistons are the same front office that traded for Blake Griffin. Like, this is a Bleacher Report article, but we were just talking about this last month in June, or 2 months ago in June, when ESPN had wrote a piece about the Pistons trading for Zion Williamson. Bobby Marks, mind you. Not to mention, look up his contract extension.
I'm looking at it right now. Crazy.
It's ridiculous. You have to pay Cade. You're going to have to pay Dern. You're going to have to pay Ivy. Like, if you trade for Zion, it's a win now move. And I don't think the Pistons are a Zion Williams away from a championship. I just don't.
Man, I don't know. With the way Cade was playing for Team Select, and then you get a healthy Zion, I don't know. Those two together, healthy on the floor, with Jaden Ivey, Duren, and Asar doing their thing, I don't know. You might be a playoff team in the East. Maybe not a fourth seed, like I said just a couple of minutes ago, but dude, you're definitely a play-in team. But you're talking maybe 7, 6, or 5 seed with a healthy Zion with this team.
Yeah, man. I remember when he was a rookie and he wasn't playing because he was injured. He was passing on the bench. He couldn't stay awake. Like, he is a very great player. Like, I'm not saying he's trash by any means. It's just, if the Pistons were going to trade for a quote-unquote star player, I just think it has to be a player that can play a full season, doesn't have the off-the-court issues with Mariah Mills. Like, there's so many red flags with him where it's just like, you could make a, like, positive and negative chart. There's more negatives than there are positives with him as a basketball player.
But do you think, though, New Orleans was just being, like, overly cautious with him? I mean, I know the foot injury, that was definitely, like, you have to sit out the season. But going back to his rookie year, it felt like, I mean, even going back to this last year, where he was throwing down the 360 dunks in warm-ups, like a hamstring injury, those are no joke. I've partially torn my hamstring. It is not fun. I have the pictures, and that was one of the nastiest bruises I've ever had in my entire life. That was terrible. I mean, it took like 2 years before I could actually do like some certain like leg exercises again. Those are no joke. But I feel like because he is so young and New Orleans wasn't really in a position to really compete, even if he was healthy, that they were just overly cautious with him. And maybe that's what attributed to some more of the longer delays in him seeing the floor.
Well, I mean, even last year, they were a top team in the West. They have a lot invested, but years previous, I think, was it his rookie year that he played a full season? I believe.
No, he played 24 games his rookie year, 61 his second year.
Okay, his second year. Yeah, I mean, he's always been a dynamic. Wow, I cannot talk today. I apologize, you guys. A dynamic player, like his ability to just move people with his size because he's just so strong. His ability to pass. I just don't think he's a Troy Weaver guy.
That's a fair point.
I just don't, man. I love Michigan and I love the Detroit culture, but like, come on, man. Like, we have some like crazy fattening foods downtown. Like, someone said, if he finds Buddy Pizza, it's over. And they're right, man. Like, Buddy Pizza slaps, bro. Like, I want pizza now just thinking about it. But like,
yeah, we got one in Kalamazoo. It's pretty good.
Yeah, like the culture here in Detroit, like food wise, I won't even get into like the women part, like, because I think Michigan or even like Detroit women, they would see a sucker.
Dude. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think the only thing that scares me, the injuries, again, I'm going to go ahead and stick with, I think they were being overly cautious. I think they probably could have got a few more games out of them. But I will say the worst thing about bringing Zion to Detroit is just his contract. It's just, I did not realize the extension. It just kicked in this past season. So you'd have 4 more years and he'd be making anywhere from $36 million to $44 million in his final year. But I mean, if you get him healthy for 2 years and you're like a middle of the pack team, you might be able to flip him for, I guess the thing I like about this trade is outside of Bojan, it's no real assets. I mean, other than the first round picks, because with Troy Weaver, those are going to be very valuable. But like, you're getting an all-star in Zion Williamson, but you're not giving up Cade, you're not giving up Jaden Ivey, you're not giving up Duren, and you're not giving up Asar. And you're not even giving up Isaiah Stewart. So you're getting rid of nobody from your core, but you're getting a potential superstar, top 10 player when healthy on your team. I would say that's probably the coolest thing about that.
Yeah. I mean, you can make an argument with that trade because you're not giving up a core member of your team.
Yeah.
But it'll get to the point where it's like, you like Jaden Ivey, you like Cade Cunningham, you like Jalen Duren. Well, when you have Zion on your books with the max extension, you're going to have to say goodbye to one of those guys. You're not going to be able to afford them. You're going to have to either try to make a trade or because you can't have a Zion Williamson and Cade on a max deal. You're not going to have a team.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the Pistons are so cautious with the way they've been attacking free agency. They want to see if, everyone's durable, how they fit together, how they gel together. This type of trade to me is, if the Pistons were an 8 seed this year and they got bounced out of the first round, sure, you make that trade to try to, get out of the first round. But like, they're not there yet. There's potential for them to get back into the playoffs possibly this season, but we're going to have to wait and see. And I think that's why they've been so cautious with everything they've done over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would say you're right about that. If they were on the cusp of winning or really competing, because I've said this before too on the podcast, like at some point, one of the core members is going to be traded for a player that really pushes you over the top, and a healthy Zion, that's what he would do. But he would help you out more down the line when you're ready to compete than he would now. He would make the Pistons a playoff team if he's healthy, though.
Oh yeah. Like if he's healthy and he's right, they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
There's no defeating that. It's just there's some people in the comments saying like, just trade for him. Like the reason why I brought up Blake Griffin a couple of minutes ago, because it's very similar. Like before they did trade for Blake Griffin, the Pistons in 2016 against the Cavs, they were a 44-win team. They were an 8 seed. And, they just didn't really have the size at that forward position because they had Marcus Morris and Tobias Harris. And you trade Tobias, you trade a first, you trade Boban, and you get Blake. But, he had maybe his first couple of games under Stan Van Gundy, they don't make the playoffs. Casey's first year, they make the playoffs, but he did severe damage to his knee, and he was never the same player again.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, even if you were to make this trade, it's like, who's to say that the pecking order doesn't change? Who's to say that maybe Zion is 1A and Cade's 1B? Because I think Zion at his best thrives with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that's true. He is that way. I just think that he could play. I still think it would be Cade, though. I think Cade would still be the 1A and Zion would be the 1B, because I think Zion's game could still be off the ball. Like, you wouldn't see the high assist numbers or anything or the playmaking, but you might see a better rebounder. You'd see a more efficient scorer, even though he already is really efficient at scoring the ball. But I think he has the ability to play off the ball. It would be interesting, though, but I'm still in the book of making this trade, though, just because you don't give up any of the core members, though. And I think even if you got 2 years of Zion being healthy, you could potentially flip that even with his bloated contract, because even some other teams would probably look at that as a bargain. They're like, oh, he's finally healthy, let's take him. But I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, do you want him? I don't. I mean, there's some people in the chat that say, yeah, I'd like to do it, and there's other people saying no, like I'm good. Like I think there will always be disgruntled superstars to trade for. It just seems like national media believe that the Pistons would be stupid enough to jump on this opportunity.
Oof. Okay. Let's move on. We have each week we're going to be looking at 2 players, maybe even more. Maybe we'll throw in a third one from time to time. But this week we're looking at 2 players, and we're going to predict their stat lines for the upcoming season. The first 2 players we have this week are Jaden Ivey and Isaiah Stewart. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this. Jaden Ivey, let's start with him. What do you think his stat line will be this upcoming year? Larger role, Cade is healthy, Duran's taking another step, Asar Thompson stepping into the lineup. What do you think for Jaden Ivey?
I think with Ivy, he's going to play such a Devin Booker role this year, where he's going to play more off ball. Cade's going to be your point guard. I think with him, I could see around 19 and a half points a game,
okay,
4 rebounds, maybe 4 assists around there. And I think he's going to shoot the ball a lot better than he did. I don't think he's going to shoot I think he shot 42, maybe 41% from the field.
41.6, 42. From
yeah.
the field, and then 34% from 3. But he was a 37% catch and shoot player from 3.
Yeah, I think he's going to play a lot like he did at Purdue, where he was playing a lot off the ball. And he's just going to kind of be that maybe catch and shoot type of shooting guard that I think the Pistons really need out of him, and also have the ability to attack the basket whenever he wants, because he does have a very quick first step. But I think 19 and a half, to me, I would not be surprised. I could see him going over 20. I think he's got all the tools to be a high level NBA scorer. It's just, you kind of wonder if the efficiency will be there, but I have stock in the efficiency. I think within Monty Williams' system and Cade being the point guard and them kind of building that chemistry, I think it could definitely get there.
So you're saying 19 points, but how many rebounds and assists? Do you think he averages over or under 5 assists? Because he was at 5.2 his rookie year.
I would probably say 19 and a half points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I think the assists take a dip a little bit, because I think there will be less playmaking from him just because Cade is back in that lineup. But I'm going to go ahead and say he averages 21 points per game. I'm going to say 4 rebounds, and I'm gonna agree with you. I think 3.5 assists. I think that's a good number. But I think we're also going to see him be more of a defensive player, though. I think he's capable of being a good defensive player in the NBA. I think he could be a good to elite two-way player in the NBA, especially with Cade back, taking some of that pressure off of him offensively. Another step of Duran taking another larger role offensively. Asar Thompson now. I really think Jaden Ivey can take that next step in being a very good two-way player for the Detroit Pistons. But I'm at 21-4 and 3.5 for assists, because I do think the playmaking will take a dip. But I do expect I expect him to shoot probably close to 44 or 45% from the field. And I'm going to say probably around 36% from 3 for the season.
Yeah, I think anywhere from 17 to a half to 19 and a half, to me, I think is possible with him. I just think the chemistry with him and Cade, it might take a couple of months, because they really haven't played too much together in the backcourt. But I think with the 0.5 offense, I think the ball movement, there's going to be a lot of people cutting, a lot of people slashing to the basket. But like I've said in previous podcasts, I want people to go watch Jaden Ivey while he was at Purdue. His ability to catch and shoot, I think, is very underrated in his game, and we just didn't really utilize that last year, because obviously Cade went out. But I think him just playing off ball next to Cade, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to get easy points.
I did too. I think it's going to be fun to watch him play next to Cade. I think it's crazy that there's another potential great backcourt in Detroit. You look at Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, then you look at Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton, and it might be too soon right now, but Cade and Jaden Ivey, they have a chance to be up there in that upper echelon of great Detroit backcourts that we've seen over the years. So I'm excited to watch them, and I'm with you. I encourage people to go watch him at Purdue. Watch him slingshot coming off I believe it was the left side of the floor, getting a screen and going from the wing of the 3 and just taking 1 or 2 steps with the ball. He's right at the rim with in a split second. It's crazy how Purdue was able to utilize his athleticism, making some hard cuts to the basket. It was pretty cool. But Isaiah Stewart, Last year in 50 games, 47 starts, he averaged 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, just a dash under a block, but we did see him shoot 33% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. What is Isaiah Stewart's stat line for next season?
I think with Stu, it'll be similar, but I would expect his 3-point percentage to be a little bit higher. I think he's really crucial to the two big lineup, and who knows if even Monty Williams is going to throw that out there. He could just have a curveball and a starts. But for this topic, I think I could see him at 13, 7, and maybe a block a game. Maybe. I don't really see him like filling up the stat sheet, but I see him being a key contributor on the defensive end of the floor, really helping Duren with the switches. But I think he could shoot 35% from 3 this year.
That's what I was thinking from 3, 35%. I don't know if he takes 4 threes again, because my school of thought is he's coming off the bench. I think he's going to be the backup 5, and we'll still see him play some minutes at the 4, but I don't think he starts. I think that goes to Bojan and Asar at the 3 and the 4 this upcoming year. So I'm going to say he's still average. I'm going to say he averages 10 points per game, 6 rebounds, because I think he'll be playing further away from the basket, because he did average 2 offensive rebounds per game. But again, I mean, yeah, he did take 4 3-pointers last year, and he still averaged 2 a game. But I still think we're gonna see him be more perimeter oriented. Defensively, I think we're still going to see a lot of energy coming from him, being that, switchable nightmare while also being able to protect the rim. But I'm going to say 10 points, 6 rebounds. I'll keep it at an assist, but I think we see him. He averaged 0.7 blocks. I think he averages like at least a 1 block per game next year while just playing great defense off the bench for the Detroit Pistons. And I agree with you again. I think he shoots 35% from 3.
Yeah, I don't really expect like crazy, numbers from him. I don't expect him to average 20 and 10.
Yeah.
But I think he'll make life easier for, Duren, Bojan, just switching defensively. I think 12-7 and a blocking game and shooting 35% from 3 to me would be a good season for him.
Oh, for sure. Let's talk about this next topic. This comes from a fan of the show, Cameron. Shout out to him. Always throwing questions my way on Twitter throughout the week. And I kind of changed it up a little bit, but he asked, what would it take for Cade to be an MVP? But I'll ask you, what would it take for Cade or any other Piston to win MVP? Because the Detroit Pistons, they've never had a regular season MVP. We talked about this on a podcast a couple months ago, and I looked it up. There were no MVPs for the Detroit Pistons. I think for Cade, he would probably have to average close to what Shai averaged this past year. And I think that was 31 a game. But I think the Pistons also would have to be one of the top 2 teams, if not the best team in the entire NBA for him to win MVP. But what about you?
Yeah, if Cade or any other Piston to win MVP, they'd probably have to be a top 3 seed in the East.
Just the East league?
Yeah, maybe. No, probably the East. I think your top 3 seed in the East, you could probably win MVP. Get out of the first round, personally. Oh, actually, they vote for it before the playoffs start, actually?
They do.
Okay, yeah. So, scratch that. I just think you have to have a 50-win season.
Ooh. I think for a Piston to win it, they'd have to have over 60 wins. I think it'd have to be like an incredible year, because you don't really see. Because again, we've never seen a Detroit Piston win the MVP. Do you think Cade could be the first one, though? Do you think he really has a shot based on what we've seen from him? I know it's early.
I mean, I think for him to win MVP, he'd have to average close to 30. That's my thing. I don't think that's something that he wants to do. I think he's capable of doing it if he wants to, but I think he'd rather get other people involved. I just don't think there's anyone on this team that is like, oh, I want to win MVP. Like they want to make the playoffs. But I think it's a fun question. But I don't know.
Like, I think he'd have to average. I said Shai at 31, but Shai averaged 31, 5, and 5 Luka Doncic, who Cade was kind of playing that role for Team Select, he averaged 32, 9, and 8, shooting 50% from the field and 34% from three. And he didn't win MVP. But if they were like a top 4 team in the Western Conference, Luka probably was in real consideration to win MVP. I think it would have to be that type of season for Cade Cunningham. But I think the Pistons would have to be like a 60-win team for him to do it.
Now, you think that much?
Yeah, I think 32, 9, and 8 with 60-plus wins for the Detroit Pistons would catapult Cade Cunningham into the MVP conversation. Which,
yeah, I mean, I think Ben had a funny comment. He said, Cade MVP, James Harden will get Defensive Player of the Year if that happens.
well,
Like,
that's crazy.
I'm saying, like, I think that the team is more focused on team success than individual awards. Like,
Yeah.
Could Cade win MVP if he tried to score 30 a night? I don't know, maybe, but like, I think the Pistons as an organization, they've always kind of put the team first over like individual accolades.
Oh, for sure. But again, the topic was, what would Cade do? What would he'd have to do? I think it would have to be like, I don't ever see him putting up those numbers anyway. Like, that's why I'm saying 24, 7, and 7 for his stat line, because I feel like that's realistic. But those are also numbers that don't take away from the team from being a team player. That's just something that happens within the flow. But 32, 9, and 8. Yeah, that would definitely, and with a 60-plus win team, that would catapult him in the MVP consideration. The conversation, I mean. But again, I just don't see it really happening, to be honest with you.
I think you have a better chance of the Pistons making the Eastern Conference Finals than Cade ever winning MVP.
Yeah, I would take that. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, like I'd rather have him average less and just be a team leader than him have like a flash in the pan like MVP and us not have any kind of playoff success.
Yeah, but it would be pretty cool if he did average like 32, 9, and 8 within the flow of the team. And 60 wins, though, would be still pretty incredible if he did that. Be pretty cool. Be a fun year. We can move on to the final topic before we get into Q&A, though. This is a fun topic I thought of. Just an off-season topic. But who beats the Lakers for the title in 2004? The Pistons replacing Rasheed Wallace with Blake Griffin, or the Pistons replacing Tayshaun Prince with Grant Hill?
God. Blake Griffin replacing Rasheed.
And mind you, they are in the finals. This is not like what would they do in the regular season. They are in the finals against the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Like, I want to go. Nah, that's hard. I want to say Grant Hill. It's because I feel like Grant Hill could buy in if he was on that team. Like, he doesn't have to, be the guy, because they played like more, openly together. But it's like both Grant and Blake had to be like the number one option.
Yeah.
I felt like Grant during his career, as he got older, he bought into being more of that team guy, where Blake seems like every other year he's jumping to contender to contender, and he hasn't really contributed much.
Okay.
So I feel like the easy answer would be Grant, but that's a hard question to answer.
I think I was kind of leaning towards Grant Hill, and the reason was because I still think Rip Hamilton and the way they ran the offense, they still run that type of offense, but they always needed a guy that could just go out and get you a buck. And I feel like he was the guy they relied on most to do that. But I felt like they always needed like that isolation scorer, and Grant Hill would have provided that. But I do agree with you. I do think Grant Hill buys in. But man, Blake Griffin with that team, with him, Tayshaun, and Ben Wallace in the front court, a little undersized, but just that explosiveness, like, holy crap, that would have been fun at the 4. And they still kind of have that swagger with him on there.
But I just don't think Blake would be able to gel with those guys, just because I think he's a great player, but Rasheed Wallace just fit like a glove with that team. and he was selfless. I don't know if Blake could kind of fit into that same role where he could feel comfortable, like maybe being a third option instead of a first option.
I think I don't know. I felt like Chauncey and him would be a pretty nasty duo, though, both in their younger years. That would have been kind of fun. We got to see it when they were both playing for the Clippers. But I think I'm with you. I think Grant Hill, I think Tayshaun Prince, I loved him. It's not easy to replace him, but I think it would be easier to replace him with Grant Hill than it would be with Rasheed Wallace. Because you're right, Rasheed Wallace provided more defense than Blake Griffin ever would have. But damn, that 014 with either of those guys would be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it's just, I think you have a bigger sample size with Grant during his career than you do with Blake. Because as soon as Blake got injured, like he just wasn't the same player. And when Grant got injured, he actually, like, he contributed with the Phoenix Suns teams where, you know, he wasn't the guy, but he still contributed. He still, you know, gave them points off the bench. So
yeah, but we're getting 18-19 Blake Griffin on this team. His best individual season ever. That's the Blake Griffin we're getting.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about it. Grant Hill versus Kobe in the finals.
Yeah, no, I am thinking about it. That would be cool. That would be a lot of fun. How many games do you think a Grant Hill 04 Pistons team? How many games do you think they win in 5, or do you think they win, or do you think they give them the sweep, or do you think it goes 7?
I don't even know. I think that whole series, like, you know, Karl Malone gets hurt, Gary Payton's old as dust. I think they had I think Luke Walton was a rookie, and they like tried to put him in there because no one else could play. I think Grant would probably cook just playing against all of those rookies and, you know, like bench players. But if you think about it, like, I just don't know how he would fit in, because like you're saying, 18-19 Blake, or well, then give me like 2000 Grant Hill. Like, that's a whole nother player.
Yeah, I mean, he gives them, like I'm saying, you get that isolation player. You get that guy that you can put, because I felt like even though they won the championship, their offense stalled quite a bit, where they were always looking for someone to go get them a bucket. And I think either of those players go and get you a bucket, but I do think Grant Hill buys in, like you were saying, more of the team kind of player.
I just don't know if he could lock down Kobe the way Tayshaun did, though.
Yeah, that's true too. But again, like, I mean, if you're playing, because that would have been the best team Grant Hill ever played on during his Pistons era. You know, I mean, I know they won, I think 54, 57 games when it was him and Jerry Stackhouse, but having Rasheed and Ben Wallace help clean it up defensively, but also not having to carry the team night in and night out like he did during the Teal days, that might give him a little bit more energy.
I think either Blake or Grant, I think if you were to interchange them with Rasheed or Tayshaun, I don't think they win the championship. I really don't.
I still
Grant Hill. Like Sheed going off against Medvedenko, whatever his name was. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if Blake could do that, honestly. Like, I just think the way that team was constructed, each of them fed off each other. And I don't know if you insert a Blake Griffin or a Grant Hill, that the chemistry would gel.
See, I think it was the perfect time, though, too, because that Lakers team was dead in the water. They were open wound, sharks getting ready to bite. That was the end of it during that team. It was the perfect time for the Pistons to strike. And I still think that I have more questions with Blake Griffin on the team if they would win, but I am positive they still come away with the Larry O'Brien trophy with Grant Hill at the 3 instead of Tayshaun Prince.
Yeah, like, I don't know, man. It's just a weird topic. Like, because I hate having conversations like this, because it's like, yeah, you can't really replace anyone on that team.
No,
you just can't.
You know who else was a rookie on that Lakers team, though? I'm looking up the roster. Ime Udoka.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was a rookie on the team. I don't know if he played any minutes on him, but it says he was a rookie right over Luke Walton.
Huh. Did not know that.
He only played 4 games for him, though, so. Luke Walton played 72 that year. Damn, they were looking for it. Before we really get into the Q&A, I do have a question for you from Cameron. I will start the Q&A off with this question, okay?
Okay.
All right. Let me just pull this up real quick. Okay, the Pistons statistically had the worst defense last year in the league via NBA.com team stats. So where do you think they fall this year in Monty's system?
Like a defense?
Yeah, team defense. They were last year.
I think they'll be like 20 to 17th.
Okay.
I think they take a big jump because he does preach a lot of defense. And if you do look at his Phoenix Suns teams from previous years, they were pretty good defensive teams too. I don't think they're going to go from last to first like that. I think it's going to take some time and there's a process with it, but I do think they will improve dramatically defensively.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really know where to put them, to be honest with you. I was thinking maybe like early 20s, like 21, 22, maybe 20 defensively. I do think they take a leap though too. Just again, having a healthy roster is going to help out tremendously.
Yeah, I think they will improve. I don't think they're going to be a last place defensive team. As the roster has gotten a little bit better and, the guys are a year older. So I think it will improve though. But we can get into the Q&A. This one comes from Derek Brown. It's a Marvin Bagley question. Why does everyone want Marvin Bagley off the team when one of our big gets hurt? We're going to need him.
I think it's like a combination of he doesn't play defense and his contract, which, again, his contract isn't really terrible. I mean, it's less than 9% of the team's overall cap, I believe. I just think it was an experiment that showed some flashes, but it just hasn't worked out here in Detroit. I mean, I don't think Marvin Bagley at his current stage contributes to winning basketball. Very talented player, very good, but just doesn't really contribute to winning basketball. And I just think people are over it right now for him in his time in Detroit.
So you think the fan base as a whole is over it?
No, I think there's a lot of fans that still want him on the team. I do think, though, the people that want him off the team are pretty loud and they're pretty consistent with like what they post on social media. That's why you see it a lot. But I mean, I can live with him on the team. It doesn't affect me at all. I still think there's a chance for him to have a role on a team. And I do think that he could eventually contribute to winning basketball. He just hasn't yet. And those would be my reasons why I would want him off the team. But again, I don't want him off the team. But if there's a trade to make, yeah, we could ship him out.
Yes. See, I think he's got more of a role on this team than a lot of people think.
Okay.
And I can kind of get into that and why I believe that. I think when he came back from his injury, his second injury, he came out, he saw that the Pistons traded for James Wiseman, and guy was averaging 20 and 10. Like, there's talent there, there's motivation there. Like I said earlier in the podcast, there's going to be a lot of competition in training camp, and I think iron sharpens iron. And I think he's a guy that if you need a quick bucket, you need a center or a power forward to score for you, there's value in keeping him. I think the main reason why people want Marvin Bagley off the team is his defensive ability. It has nothing to do with him scoring the basketball. It's the defensive end where you're not getting a consistent effort on the defensive end, but he's very talented. I mean, you could argue, why doesn't he start? Because he's got an array of post moves. He's a really great low post center. And I've even seen him practice a lot of perimeter shots this summer with his trainer. And I think that's something that he's really focusing on this year's becoming a better three-point shooter. But I think there's value in keeping him. I just think sometimes fans just want a shiny new toy and they want to get rid of Bagley and they just want another maybe high lottery pick. I don't know what it is, but for me personally, I think there's value in keeping him. You've said it on this podcast over the years, 14-7 guy all day. And I think there's value in keeping that because if you got a 14-7 guy off your bench, I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, and I think again, he's more valuable in less minutes because he can contribute offensively. He is a good rebounder. I think he's actually a better rebounder than James Wiseman. But unfortunately, night in to night out, he just doesn't always put it together. He doesn't play. I mean, he just doesn't play with the same effort night in and night out. And that's the thing that he really needs to figure that part out.
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the season, he didn't. But once they traded for Wiseman, I saw an aggressive, more hungry version of Bagley that he's probably like, okay, they just traded for another high lottery pick. Like, he's probably thinking, like, I got to get my shit together. Like,
you don't think the first thing that crossed through his mind was like, damn it, Spider-Man meme?
I made that joke, and a lot of Warriors fans said, no, they're not the same at all. You don't know basketball. I'm like, it was a joke, dude. Like, chill out. This is a question from Ryan. I swear, I don't think he's missed the podcast in like a year.
He's our biggest fan, man.
Literally. Question. Thoughts on Wiseman's future? Is he an asset or is his potential high enough to give him a contract next year? And what could that look like?
Man, this would be such a great question at the end of this upcoming season because I want to see a full season of him healthy. Before I talk whether he's an asset. I think right now his potential is high enough to give him an extension. Something fair, something that, maybe is more based on incentives. I don't really know if they do a ton of that in the NBA. I know it's a lot of guaranteed money, but if you could give him, I would take a chance on him and his potential for like a friendly extension, a team friendly extension with maybe like a player option after 2 years, so maybe if he does, play really well after 2 years, he could go out and get a bigger contract, whether it's from the Pistons or another team. Right now, I would say that he's still more of a project than he is an asset, but I think he's closer to being an asset, but I still think he's in that, that project, high potential mold right now, that level of player.
So I still have Monty Williams. He was on a interview with The Ticket this summer, and I still have what he said, this echoing in my brain, saying that, Wiseman just needs an opportunity to play. So my thoughts on his future, Ryan, is I think the Pistons are going to see what they have this year, and they'll determine whether or not is he worth that contract extension like Lance was talking about. Now, I believe he's 12 or 13 million on the books this year. And that would be that's pretty high, but he was a high lottery pick. You have to remember that. I think what a contract could look for a Wiseman is I'd probably guess like 9 to 14 million, like around that ballpark. Like if you did want to extend him, if you feel like he's worth it, if you feel like he'd be a good number 2 center behind Duren, kind of look like what Naz Reid got, similar. Like, Naz Reid isn't the starting center for the Timberwolves, but he's a good piece off the bench for them. I think that's kind of like where the ballpark, like a 9 to 14 million for a backup center. And you kind of have to ask yourself, is, Wiseman a backup center that I want, or do you want more of that veteran presence? Because, eventually the Pistons are going to want to start winning. Like, do you want like that Mason Plumlee type? Do you want that veteran center to back up Duren? And I think eventually the Pistons are going to have those types of discussions, but I really don't know if they would bring him back. He'd really have to ball out this season for them to consider it.
So it says on Spot Track or whatever you want to call it, 2024, he'll be a restricted free agent. Qualifying offer is $15.8 million for the qualifying offer. I don't know if that means per year, but I'm assuming that's what it means. So it'd be a little bit of a pay bump. But I just don't see the Pistons doing that for him, though. That just seems like too much for what he brings to the team right now.
Yeah, I think like the CBA is going up. We both know that.
Yeah.
Ryan had commented 3 for 30 for Wiseman. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
that's a fair contract. Like if you think his ceiling on this team is a backup center, those are conversations you have to have. But there's some people on social media, Pistons Twitter, they think he could start next to Duren. They think that could be a 4 or 5 combo. I really don't know. I really don't know what his role will be on this team. Keith Langlois had wrote a Q&A piece where he could see neither Bagley or Wiseman even getting burned on Monty's bench. Like, that's a real possibility. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens in training camp, and kind of gather our opinions after the fact. But it's so hard to kind of guess like what he's going to be, whether it's a backup center or maybe you try to experiment with him. But I think the player is a good player. It's just there's a lot of stuff where it's like, to me, he's a 7-footer, but he rebounds like he's 6'1".
Yeah, he's a weak rebounder.
I mean, for his size, like, I've never seen a 7-foot center rebound like that. Like, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm coming off like as a hater, but like when I watch him rebound, I was like, dude, like he doesn't really jump for the ball. He kind of just waits for it to land in his hand. It's not like Drummond where he was jumping like three and four times trying to get a rebound. Like, I've never kind of seen that type of effort yet.
Yeah, he's, for his career, he's averaged 5.9. I mean, he did average 8 with the Detroit Pistons, but again, wasn't playing with Isaiah Stewart. Marvin Bagley did come back. Jalen Duren was coming off the bench, and there was a clear difference in effort on the boards when Duren and Wiseman were on the floor together. I'm with you. I do think that Wiseman is more of like, he waits for the ball instead of going up after it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know, it's something if he can fix or not, but that's just something I saw when he was here. It's just like, man, he does not like jump for the ball. He kind of just like waits for it to come to him. But I mean, that's just nitpicking at this point. But
I mean, it's a fair thing though.
Yeah. We do have a question for you though. This comes from Ben. Shout out to Ben. Question: how does it feel knowing Cade might have heard your voice, Lance?
Didn't I mean, well, Ashton's watched our podcast before, but so I don't know, maybe he showed him. That'd be pretty cool. I think that's pretty sweet. It is I don't know, I don't really know what to say. I mean, it is pretty cool. It was really cool to hear myself on there as well. I think what's probably the coolest thing is how many people recognize me just for my voice, and then how many people were giving me credit and seeing me, saying that they could see me in different roles using my voice, whether it's like doing play-by-play, which is something that I do now for high school sports. And I would love to, go to the college level, or even maybe one day doing it for the Pistons. That'd be really sweet. I have no idea. That would be amazing. I definitely would love the opportunity, but yeah, other than, it was just really cool. That's it. And it would be, I think it would be kind of funny to like maybe meet Cade or some other Piston, and they're like, yeah, dude, I heard, yeah, and they recognize me from my voice. That would be pretty cool too. But yeah, it's a cool feeling.
Awesome. Man, you're gonna love this question. It's about your boy. What kind of role do you see Isaiah Livers playing this year?
An off the bench 3 or 4, kind of like I think we're going to see a better defense from him, because I do think he's a good one-on-one defender, but he definitely got burned in isolations because he had nobody backing him up. Like, there was nobody there at the rim to protect, to help him, So I think with a healthy team, you're going to see a better defense from Isaiah Livers. And I think with Cade coming back, Bojan coming back, Jaden Ivey taking another step, Alec Burks being back, you're going to see a less of an offensive role from Isaiah Livers, and he's going to get back to his rookie year shooting, where in 19 games, I think he averaged like 42% from 3 in those 19 games as rookie. I think we'll see a better shooting year from Isaiah Livers as well.
Yeah, I think for Livers, he'll probably play in between that 3-4, Luke. I think as a role, what we could see for him is probably being a guy that's going to be a communicator on defense out there. Even though he did get cooked a lot last year, his effort was there. I think the 3-point shot is a real thing. The only concern that I have with him, and I know Lance probably kind of shares the same opinion, is just the health.
Yep.
Like, if you can give me 65 games, I'm good. Like, I don't need you to play a full 82. I really don't. I mean, if you do, that's great. But I think 60, if you can give me 65 games off the bench, shooting close to 40% from 3, and just trying out there in defense, I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, 42%, 19 games his rookie year. Then in 52 games last year, he shot 37%. And he's a career 38% shooter from three on 4 attempts. So he's a solid 3-and-D guy. He's definitely in that mold. And he's a good connector offensively.
Yeah, I think, if he could shoot 40% from three, I'd be ecstatic. I think he has the potential to. And, playing with a playmaker like Monte Morris off the bench, and you got Alec Burks off the bench also. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of open opportunities for him because there's going to be just so much attention on the vets off the bench.
Him, Joe Harris, and Isaiah Stewart are going to make it rain from three in the second unit this year. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. So, got Ashton in here. Shout out.
Nice. Appreciate it.
Still in Jamaica, Ashton?
Dude, you saw that Photoshop of Cade? That was
I saw him it was like a Rasta beanie, and then like I knew it as soon as someone saw him in that Rasta beanie. They photoshopped him in like that fat that make your face like really fat app. I was just like, bro, like, you guys gotta stop that. Like, you really do. It's like the first time was funny, but like every time it's just like, come on, man.
I just hope
what are we doing?
I hope another big time podcaster falls for it though. That just cracked me up. What is this guy doing in Detroit? I don't know. He's just playing around with Photoshop. That's all he's doing.
Yeah, I think Kevin O'Connor fell for it.
Oh, there are a lot of people did.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, like the first time was funny, but like every time you're doing that, like it's just silly. And it's like, it's not even like other fan bases doing it. It's like Pistons fans doing it.
Hey.
That's what I'm just like, come on, man. Oh, Rico Hines next week. Oh, okay.
Sweet.
Dropping some news, Ashton. Love to hear it. I think I showed you the pictures from last year. From Rico Hines. Yeah, because Cassie, who's like a really popular photographer, she like had sent me like some pictures that I got to show you like last year. So happy for Rico Hines stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people on social media will be too.
Kevin Knox, all-star in Rico.
Oh, dude, Kevin Knox last year, that was insane. He looked like T-Mac out there. I do want to get back to Q&A. This comes from Mega Hustle. He said, will Bojan and Burks be traded this season?
Damn, I wish this was where an insider would help us out tremendously. Will Bojan and Burks be traded? I don't think both. Unless like Sasser takes on, because we both agree he's going to start in the G League, but we do think that he'll get minutes. That's consistent minutes at some point this season. If Sasser really shows out, I believe Burks is on the trading block. If Isaiah Livers can stay healthy, I think Bojan would be on the trading block as well, because they just need someone else. And I mean, yeah, if like Asar is like the real deal and his shot takes a jump this rookie year, I think Bojan will be on the trading block. But I don't think both of them will be traded this year. Maybe next off season, but I don't think during the regular season they won't be. They're too valuable right now for the Pistons.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, I think there's a good chance neither of them get traded. I think both of those guys contribute to winning basketball. And we didn't see it last year, obviously, because of injuries, but Cade has real chemistry with Bojan. Even in the 12 games last year, you saw it. Like he looked for Bojan a lot. And Bojan's a great shooter. The Pistons had one of the worst benches last year until Alec Burks came back. After Alex Burks came back, they had a top 5 bench in the NBA. I think both of those guys are foundation pieces that they're trying to build with. But, for sake of this argument, who gets dealt? Burks probably. I think the Pistons' asking price for Bojan is just so incredibly high that not one NBA team is going to give them 2 second-round picks or pick swaps and a young player. But if I had to guess, possibly Burks, because you have Joe Harris.
Well, I mean, think about it. We all talk about how Marcus Sasser was brought in to replace Killian. I really think Marcus Sasser was brought in to replace Burks, at
Yeah.
some point like that. And that's why I think, but I don't think anybody right now could replace Bojan. I mean, maybe if Isaiah Livers stayed healthy and the 3-point shot was real, you don't need him to average 20 a game, but you need him to continue to be a floor spacer. Because I think overall, Isaiah Livers' game can be more valuable than Bojan's right now because Bojan is very much a scorer. But if he's not scoring, what else does he bring to the floor? But so I would say, yeah, I think if one of them had to be traded, it would be Burks. But I don't think both are being traded just yet.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think both are valuable. I love Burks off the bench last year. Him just baiting fouls and teaching Ivy and Kate how to do that. Bojan like flirted with 50, 40, 90 as the number one option on a rebuilding team last year. Like think about that for a second. That's insane. A role player averaging that 20 points a game, like that's incredible to me. And he did it like what, 33 years old. Like that's just like that doesn't get talked about enough either. And I know fans don't care, but like I thought that was really impressive.
Oh, he had such a great year. He was a bright spot.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he carried me in fantasy. I'm not even gonna like lie.
Same. I had him on my team as well.
This is a question from MB Well, and this is actually a Michigan native guy who kicked our ass when we did play him. Should the Pistons go after a guy like Isaiah Jackson to replicate the defense of the past?
Didn't we talk about him like when we first started doing this podcast? Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But I loved because he was on Phoenix, wasn't he, at one point? And he was getting almost no run. I think Isaiah Jackson was with Phoenix.
I think he's on the Pacers right now.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about Jalen Williams? Because Jalen Williams was on the Suns before.
Yeah,
he got traded to the Pacers. Yeah, there was a game like when we played the Pacers between Jalen Williams and Isaiah Jackson. They had like 20 blocks.
Yeah.
During a game this year, but I think Isaiah Jackson is a throwback to MB Wells' point. Should the Pistons go after him? I don't think so. You have Duran, you have Wiseman, you have Bagley. Like your front court's pretty loaded. But I get what he's trying to say. Like you need a guy like that because like his energy, his hustle. He didn't average a whole lot of points. He averaged like 7 points this year, 4.5 rebounds. Shot 14% from three. Holy crap, that's terrible.
But in 16 minutes, though, he did this all in.
Yeah, a block and a half a game. I think like the Pacers are a really good team. That's why I said earlier, like it's going to be a rivalry. Definitely going to be a rivalry. Like they have a very good team.
Man, his per 36 numbers are just crazy. His per possessions are crazy. 20, 13 with 4 blocks a game, 2 assists. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think this is the type of guy just based on like looking at his game. I think he's the type of guy that's probably never like a full-time starter in the NBA, but more of an energy guy off the bench. Yeah, I would love to see a guy like him in Detroit where they just come off the bench. They just provide a spark. They're only getting like 15 to 17 minutes a game, but they know their role. I think that's more valuable than a guy averaging 14 and 7 off the bench. I'm just saying, like if you get a couple rebounds, block a couple shots and do your job and then contribute to winning, go ahead.
Man.
Yeah, I'm taking shots. I'm sorry. I'm in that kind of mood.
Yeah, I mean, like he's averaged a block and a half, almost a block and a half since he's entered the league. For his career, he's averaging a block and a half, which I think is impressive. I believe he went to Kentucky, if I do remember correctly. And I know he's from Michigan. I think he's from like Rochester or something like that.
It says Pontiac, Michigan on his basketball reference. He did go to Kentucky, though. You're right about that.
Yeah, I remember him just being like a really high energy guy, like kind of like a Montrezl Harrell type, but actually blocking shots. I mean, he would be kind of like a sneaky like guy to go after if you wanted to. I just don't know. We just have so many front court players.
Yeah, but I mean, we need some ones that are actually going to help contribute.
Yeah, I want to look up his contract, so now I'm kind of interested. You kind of talked me into it. personally. So he signed a 2-year, $5 million contract. Holy crap, man! That's incredibly cheap. Wait, that's not right. Hold on. Oh yeah, it is. 2-year, five. Wow. So he'll be a restricted free agent in 2025.
Sacrifice Killian for him.
So Killian and Halliburton on a team.
Oh God, could you imagine that practice?
Yeah, he'd probably be talking shit. I can't believe they took you over me.
that would be devastating for him. Oh
no.
my gosh.
Mr. E, do you think the price he received for we could get you? Do you think the price he received for we could have gotten a used Obi Toppin? I don't know what this question is referring to. If you're still watching, Mr. E.
So he's asking if like what Indiana got him for, Pistons could have got him for, and do you think we could have used Obi Toppin? That's how I'm interpreting it as.
What did he go for? Like a couple seconds? Let me look it up.
I liked Obi Toppin's game.
I mean, as like a lob threat, I thought he was pretty good. Just on the defensive end, he doesn't really try. But I mean, yeah, we probably could have traded for Obi Toppin if we wanted to. Yeah, 2 seconds for him. That's actually a steal. That's actually a really good trade for Indiana.
He's developed pretty nicely in New York, though, too. Like, I mean, again, probably never going to be an all-star, but solid contributor, probably going to play a decade in the NBA. High energy guy, can get you some buckets, can block a couple shots, and then wow the fans. And George Blaha with a windmill dunk.
Oh, God. I remember a lot of Pistons fans wanted to draft him during that draft. Like, they really wanted Obi Toppin.
I did, too. Even though I kept looking back, and then it's historically not good for older players to be drafted like top 5 or whatever or top 7, whatever, top 8. They're just, it's never good for an older player to be drafted that high.
Isn't he like 26?
Yeah, but I think he was like 22 or 23 when he came out.
Oh, he's 25. Yeah. I mean, he was he was pretty good. Ryan said that's not a windmill. It's a dynamite dunk. Shout out George, man. Dude, God bless him. I don't know how he still does it. The paychecks must be fat.
I don't even want to say anything.
I know this is off topic, but did you hear like Matt Shepard diss Johnny Kane during the Tigers broadcast?
Why?
Johnny Kane was like sitting next to a girl, and like Matt Shepard's like, you're scaring away all the girls, Johnny. I was just like, bro.
So
like, what the hell?
The broadcasting company I work for through the MHSAA, the guy that runs it, the guy that owns it, he actually helped Matt Shepard out early in his career. It's pretty cool stories he has. They're actually pretty good friends. And then yeah, the guy that I work for, he really appreciates Johnny Kane. But yeah, he got Matt Shepard to start way back in the day.
Yeah. Did you know the Tigers have the worst broadcast team in Major League Baseball?
Dude, it seems like all Detroit sports have the worst broadcasting teams. That's what everybody else says in the sports world.
I mean, Red Wings is pretty goated though. Freaking Mickey Redmond, dude. Like, I know this is a basketball podcast, but some of the stuff he says, bro, like I just fall out of my chair because he just doesn't give a shit.
Do you like humor with the broadcast though? Real quick before we answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't mind Johnny Kane, but I still think he needs a lot of reps. Like, I'd love for them just to put like Greg Kelser and Rick Mahorn on a broadcast.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to hear like Rick Mahorn doing play-by-play. I really do, because I know he's done it in the past.
He does the radio stuff, right?
He does Pistons radio with Mark Champion.
Okay.
Dan Miller. Dan Miller's a beast. We completely forgot about him.
Dan Miller is good. I guess it was more of like the Pistons always getting dumped on by, like, I remember Hoops Hype ranking the broadcast teams, and I think the Pistons were 30th in their rankings. But
yeah, I mean, like, I listened back. We'll get to your question in a minute, Michael. To George Blaha, like in the mid 2000s, like dude, he was getting hyped up for a Walter Herman dunk. Like I think George is just dead inside watching so much bad basketball.
There's
His excitement is like gone.
But don't you feel like growing up though, there were times where you would almost kind of fall asleep to the broadcast? Just being honest, there were times where I'm like, dude, I gotta get up. Like I was like 12 on a cup of coffee, sometimes watching the Pistons, even though they were winning. I was like,
I mean, I was always entertained by the broadcast with them because like
Greg was great.
Yeah, I mean, like my only thing that I will complain about, and then we're gonna answer this question.
Okay.
Is George and Greg, they're throwbacks, they're legends. But when they talk about guys that played in the 50s that nobody talks about, that's when I tune out. Like, I had to like research like 5 guys this year that they were talking about. I was like, man, who the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, let's just answer the question.
Yeah. Question. Can you see Asar starting in a small front court lineup with Bogey and Duren, similar to what Monte had in Phoenix with Bridges, Crowder, and Ayton?
Yes, I've talked about this plenty of times.
I think you and Wes are like on that hype train like crazy.
Yeah, dude, we made the bed. We made the bed for this for this.
Yeah. I think you need this start the hashtag start Asar.
Yes.
Like literally, because like you two are the only people I see on Twitter saying Asar should start.
Oh, there are other people now talking about it. And this is the thing that annoys me. Because I do agree with Michael. This is my absolute favorite lineup for the Pistons. Caden Ivey in the backcourt, Asar starting at the 3 with Bogey and Duren at the 4 and the 5 with Isaiah. Because I think Isaiah Stewart coming off the bench as the 5 and playing a little bit of 4, it gives you better front court depth. And then we can quit having these arguments about who gets minutes between James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley. But also Isaiah Stewart off the bench gives you a different look at the 5, gives you a different offensive look, still gives you the energy defensively. And yeah, it's just, again, gives you better front court depth. Here's what annoys me though. You have other people that are way more popular than me talking about this, and then you have other people being like, dude, this guy's a genius, talking about this starting lineup, starting to soar, and Bojan at the 4. Crazy. Nobody's ever talked about this. I talked about this. Give me the credit. I'm begging for it. But yeah, I definitely see Asar starting in this year at the 3 with Bogey at the 4.
Yeah, I think that Asar can start. I really do. So a small front court. So I'm assuming the small front court would just be Bogey and Duren, and then you have Asar at small forward.
Yeah.
Or am I reading that wrong? Yeah, so basically starting. I don't know. I don't think he starts right away. And I was having this conversation with Wes. I think having playmaking off the bench with Monte Morris and Asar makes more sense than throwing him out there like right away, because Asar's defense, I think, is going to be really infectious off the bench, and his playmaking, I think, is a really underrated part of his game, where maybe Monte Morris can do some catch and shoot stuff, and Asar can kind of just share some reps being that point guard. But I don't know, man. It's just the shooting for me. He would really have to shoot really well for me to consider starting him.
I think he'll be all right.
I just think he get away with his average shooting.
Oh yeah. I think I think him starting, you get him, Jaden Ivey, and Cade running in transition with Duren trailing. That's just so explosive and so fast. They're going to be able to play a lot faster with him in the starting lineup. And I still think you'll see him get minutes with the second unit along with Monte Morris to do some more of that playmaking. Yeah, I'm all for Asar starting. Let's start that hashtag.
Start Asar?
Yeah, start Asar.
Oh, man. But, we've been on for 2 hours. So we can just kind of end the Q&A. I feel like these podcasts are 2 hours every week, but
every week.
Why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast, where they can support it, and where they can follow you at?
Well, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Lance Caparosi. Might change it to Hollywood Lance, as Anthony's been calling me. And you can also follow Anthony at Pistons Talk, the creator of the Pistons Talk, on all social media platforms. But now let's get to the end of this. Thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.